You ever come back to the one place that made you feel whole? The place where your memories live, only to find someone else has claimed it as their own. Imagine driving hours through winding mountain roads, heart pounding with nostalgia, only to pull up to your cabin and see, no, Trespassing signs nailed into the trees on your land. That's exactly what happened to me, and trust me, what followed would shake the entire community and reveal the truth about people, pride, and the meaning of home. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw the cabin. 3 years since I locked the door, brushed the dust off my hands, and promised myself I'd back when life didn't feel so heavy. But life, as it always does, had other plans. Dad got sick, work fell apart, and I lost my grip on everything that used to matter. Even the mountain I'd once called home. So when the chance came to finally return, I packed my old truck with a duffel bag, a toolbox, and the keys I'd kept on the same rusty chain all these years. The drive up through Pine Hollow Ridge felt like traveling back in time. The air was cooler there, thinner, carrying the sharp scent of pine and earth. Every turn in the road brought back something. The time I and my father hauled logs to build the front porch. The night the first snow came early, and we laughed like kids. The sound of rain hitting the tin roof, as we told ghost stories by the fire. When I reached the gravel road leading to the property, my chest tightened. I slowed down as the familiar wooden sign came into view, Miller's Cabin. Carved by hand, letters fading but proud. That's when I saw it. A bright red no. Trespassing sign nailed right into the post. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe the county posted it. Maybe it was a prank. But then I noticed the others, signs on every tree lining the driveway, even one on the cabin door itself. Each one screaming that I didn't belong here. My heart pounded. I stepped out of the truck, boots crunching on the gravel, staring at the cabin that had once been mine. The windows were cleaned, the flower boxes full of petunias, and the front porch freshly painted. Someone had been living here. That's when I heard her voice. "Excuse me, can I help you?" A woman stepped out from behind the porch railing. Mid-50s, crisp polo shirt, clipboard in hand. The exact kind of person who thrives in OA meetings. She had that polished, pinched look that told me she'd never swung a hammer or built a fire in her life. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is my property. I own this land." She crossed her arms, unamused. "That's impossible. This cabin has been under the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association jurisdiction for nearly 2 years. You're trespassing." I felt my jaw tighten. "I built this place with my father. I have the deed in my truck." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not what our records show." It was surreal. Standing there, staring at a stranger who was telling me I didn't belong on the land my father and I had poured our souls into. My pulse thudded in my ears. I walked past her, climbed the steps, and pulled the "No Trespassing" sign off the door. She gasped like I'd just committed a crime. "Sir, you can't." "I can," I said, "and I will. This is my home." She scribbled something on her clipboard, muttering about violations and reporting this immediately. I didn't care. I opened the door, my door, and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. It wasn't musty like it should have been after 3 years. It smelled lived in, clean. Fresh coffee lingered in the air, and a throw blanket I'd never seen was folded neatly on the couch. My photographs were gone from the mantel, replaced by a family portrait of the woman and 2 golden retrievers. She hadn't just claimed the land, she'd claimed my memories. I turned back toward her, trembling. "You moved into my home." Her expression didn't change. "You abandoned it." The words hit harder than any punch could have. Abandoned. That's what she thought I'd done. But she didn't know why I'd left. She didn't know the promises made in that cabin, the grief I'd buried under those floorboards, or the nights I'd sat by that fire trying to forgive myself for not saving my father in time. As she marched down the steps, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling the sheriff or some HOA enforcer, I stood there, in the middle of my stolen home, and made a silent promise. I wasn't leaving again. Not without the truth. Not without justice. And certainly not without reclaiming what was rightfully mine. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the old porch steps, the ones my father and I had built together, staring out over the ridge as the sun sank behind the mountains. The cabin lights glowed faintly behind me, warm and familiar. But it didn't feel like home. Not yet. I replayed the woman's words in my head. You abandoned it. Maybe to her, it looked that way. But she didn't know what those 3 years had cost me. I hadn't left because I stopped caring. I left because watching that cabin without Dad in it felt like drowning in memories. Every creek, every corner, reminded me of him. When he passed, the mountain felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by love that had nowhere left to go. Still, as I sat there in the silence, I felt him again, not as a memory, but as a nudge. Don't let them take this from you, son. The next morning, I drove straight to the county clerk's office. My hands trembled as I handed over the old deed papers, still in the manila envelope my father had labeled, for my boy. The clerk, a kind-looking woman with silver hair, adjusted her glasses. Well, Mr. Miller, looks like your claim is still active. Taxes were prepaid through the trust your father left. This property's yours, fair and clear. A rush of relief flooded me, but it was quickly followed by anger. Then, how does the HOA think they own it? She sighed. Pine Hollow expanded their jurisdiction line a few years ago. Some properties were mistakenly absorbed. Yours wasn't supposed to be. They overstepped. Overstepped. That was a polite word for stole. Armed with copies of the legal documents, I drove back up the ridge. The woman, Mrs. Harper, as I later learned, was waiting for me in her perfectly pressed khakis, arms folded, her expression set like granite. Back again, she said coolly. I've already filed a report with the HOA board. You'll be fined for. I cut her off, holding out the papers. You can tell your board that they're trespassing. I own this land. I always have. Her smug confidence faltered for the first time. That's impossible. Our maps. Your maps are wrong, I said. And if you try to fight this, I'll see you in court. For a long moment, she just stood there, her lips parting slightly as she looked at the papers. Then she muttered something about checking with the association, and turned to leave. But as she walked away, I saw something shift in her shoulders. Not anger, but shame. Over the next week, I started restoring the cabin piece by piece. Fixed the shutters, cleaned out the fireplace, hung the photos she'd taken down. Every nail I hammered felt like reclaiming a heartbeat. The HOA didn't give up easily. They sent letters, threats, even a notice demanding I attend a compliance hearing. But by then, I wasn't afraid anymore. I had the law, the truth, and my father's words echoing in my mind. When the day of the hearing came, I walked into that stuffy HOA office with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Mrs. Harper was there, sitting at the head of the table. Her clipboard was gone. Her eyes, for once, weren't cold. I handed the board the official documents, and when the clerk confirmed the records, the room fell silent. Finally, Mrs. Harper cleared her throat. Mr. Miller, she said quietly, it seems a mistake was made. The HOA will withdraw all claims. You're free to retain full ownership. I should have been furious. I should have shouted, demanded an apology, maybe even sued. But looking at her, I realized something. She wasn't the villain I'd painted her as. She was just someone so used to control that she forgot what home really means. So, I nodded. Thank you. That's all I wanted. As I turned to leave, she stopped me. You've taken good care of that cabin, she said softly. Your father would be proud. I didn't ask how she knew about him. Maybe she'd heard from someone in town, or maybe she'd just seen it in my eyes. The love that built every inch of that place. A month later I stood on the porch again, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise spill over the ridge. The mountain was quiet alive. The "No trespassing" signs were gone, replaced by a single one I carved myself. It read, "Welcome home." I smiled, feeling the peace I'd been chasing for years finally settle in. Sometimes, life forces you to leave so you can understand what's worth fighting for. And sometimes, when you stand your ground, not with anger, but with truth, you don't just reclaim your land. You reclaim yourself.